After Carlson's interview with Vladimir Putin, the mood around the journalist's figure is very ambiguous in the West. A range has already appeared, ranging from a ban on entry into the country and deprivation of citizenship. The European Union seriously wants to impose sanctions. They say, "You will not see Disneyland Paris anymore, Carlson, and your children." In the European Union, of course, schizophrenia is on the rise every day because Tucker Carlson became the conductor through whom we were heard there.
What was radicalizing, very shocking and very disturbing for me was the city of Moscow, where I'd never been, the biggest city in Europe, 13 million people. And it is so much nicer than any city in my country. I had no idea. My father spent a lot of time there in the 80s when he worked for the US government and barely had electricity. And now it is so much cleaner and safer and prettier aesthetically. Its architecture, its food, its service, than any country, city in the United States that you have to, and this is non-ideological. How did that happen? How did that happen? And at a certain point, I don't think the average person cares as much about abstractions as about the concrete reality of his life.
Let's take a look at the visit of an American journalist from the everyday side. Which hotel did the American choose to stay in Moscow? What did you eat? Where did you go? And what impressions did you get about Russia? And of course, how Tucker was greeted at home after the sensational interview. Let's talk about everything in order after watching. Dear viewers, write your opinion in the comments. And if you also support Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin, please like this video. Let's see how many of us there are. And we continue in Moscow. The Americans settled in a way that couldn't be better, in the very center of the capital with views of the Kremlin. Many Russians cannot afford this hotel, but important guests should be received at the highest level. It is known that Tucker lived on the 7th floor in a room overlooking the Kremlin. These are the views that can be observed from the balcony of the royal suite. In this photo, the cheapest and most expensive hotel room. The price for one night of the cheapest room is 65,000 rubles, and the royal suite is 2.1 million rubles. It is known that Tucker did not have the most expensive room in the hotel. The journalist stated that no one paid for his trip to Moscow. During the visit to the capital, journalists literally chased Tucker, and the hotel management had to open all the back entrances so that the journalist could leave unnoticed.
This interview is courtesy of the Tucker Carlson network.
I already said that we did not refuse to talk. We're willing to negotiate. It is the western side, and Ukraine is obviously a satellite state of the US. It is evident. I do not want you to take it as if I'm looking for a strong word or an insult, but we both understand what is happening. The financial support, 72 billion US dollars, was provided. Germany ranks second, then other European countries come. Dozens of billions of US dollars are going to Ukraine. There's a huge influx of weapons. In this case, you should tell the current Ukrainian leadership to stop and come to a negotiating table, rescind this absurd decree. We did not refuse. I said let them think how to do it with dignity. There are options if there is a will. Up until now, there has been the uproar and screaming about inflicting a strategic defeat on Russia on the battlefield. Now they are apparently coming to realize that it is difficult to achieve, if possible at all. In my opinion, it is impossible by definition. It is never going to happen. It seems to me that now those who are in power in the West have come to realize this as well. If so, if the realization has set in, they have to think what to do next. We are ready for this dialogue.
The American was not interested in breakfast on the Swedish line. He preferred to eat in the hotel restaurant called Quadrum. Meticulous journalists managed to find out what the guest of the capital ordered for breakfast and lunch. For breakfast, he ordered eggs Benedict from the chef's menu for 1,500 rubles and gave another 1,500 for fish cuts. The total price of breakfast was about 5,000 rubles. Another metropolitan restaurant, where Tucker was caught for a photo, aroused sympathy. We feel a little sorry for him. They won't even give us a proper meal. We also don't know if it was for the sake of comparison or out of habit. Tucker looked into the Russian equivalent of a familiar network. He took French fries, 2 cheeseburgers, again the Russian equivalent. I paid about 600 rubles and talked to the Russians while waiting for the order. In an interview, Tucker admitted that he is prone to obesity, so he scolds himself for being addicted to fast food. Well, who's used to what? Americans are like that. Russians also use neural networks to visualize their fantasies of Putin and Tucker sitting at a table on Red Square eating pies and sandwiches with red caviar, like this in Russian. Tucker Carlson is primarily a journalist, and when he was seen in a Russian supermarket, it became clear that he arrived in Aachen for a reason, but in order to study the food situation in the country. He did not just buy, but photographed shelves with a variety of food: tea, coffee, dairy products, as well as chips and soda. Another journalist was seen at a gas station where he was interested in gasoline prices. Observers suggest that this is not for nothing, and the journalist collected information to get a complete picture of how Russians live, what they eat, what they refuel with, and how much they pay for all this. Tucker's actions cause a fury in the Western media. For them, Carlson is a man who tears apart the whole picture of the world about the evil Russians that they created from the very beginning of their So Tucker, after he left Moscow, has not yet contacted, as reported by the media. Tucker is now in Dubai.
It became very clear to anyone paying attention several months ago that Ukraine cannot win its war against Russia. The Ukrainian military will not be able, even with Western backing, hundreds of billions of dollars of it, to expel the Russian military from parts of eastern Ukraine. Ukraine doesn't have the industrial capacity, neither does NATO or the United States, and it doesn't have the people. Russia has 100 million more in population than Ukraine does. And that means that further support from the West for the Ukrainian military only means more dead Ukrainians and a further degraded Western economy in the U.S. and in Germany particularly.
It is also reported that the U.S. authorities are going to impose sanctions on the journalist. That's all. Dear viewers, what do you think about this? Write your opinion in the comments. See you soon.
And underlying it all, as you just said, is an impulse that's indefensible and I think deeply immoral. So I'm so grateful for you having the courage to talk about this in public, and I hope common sense in your position prevails. Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, thank you. Free speech is bigger than any one person or any one organization. Societies are defined by what they will not permit. What we're watching is the total inversion of virtue.